Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. Mars. All we keep hearing about is Mars, and there is such an information overload of so much nonsense going on in the world that no one's really processing what they're actually hearing. We keep hearing about occupying Mars. We see Elon Musk wear the shirt Occupy Mars. Yet nobody thinks to question why we haven't been back to the moon since the 1960s, or the fact that they continue to release movies that actually show that the moon landing was done on a green screen, like films starring Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson called Fly Me to the Moon. But we continually hear about Mars, and I want to explain it to you so that you understand more what is happening here. So Elon Musk just recently, once again, tweeted out Mars will be called the New World, just as America was in past centuries. Such an inspiring adventure. While Elon Musk, of course, is talking about occupying Mars, going to Mars, colonizing Mars, we also hear NASA talking a lot about Mars. Now, just the origin of the planets, people should understand, because this is the religion of science. This is Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury. This is all named after deities. These are named after their gods that they worship. There is no going to Mars. You cannot go to Mars, just like you cannot go to the moon and you cannot go to Saturn. It has to do with worship. And the latest narrative that they're pushing, that Elon Musk is pushing, is one day Mars will save Earth. I am certain of it. They are preparing people to live on Mars, and that might make you say to yourself, wait a minute, well, if you can't go to Mars, if you can't get up through that firmament and actually get up into space and land on one of these planets that they tell you are actually planets that are around that you could go and live on, then what are they talking about when they're tweeting things out like humanity will reach Mars in your lifetime? Or people like Alex Jones and the alt-right media who are now pushing this Mars narrative with things like breaking exclusive, learn why Elon Musk's plan to colonize the moon and Mars is critical to the future of humanity's survival and consciousness. And of course, you've seen some of the footage that they've shown us recently from NASA, from Mars and colonizing Mars. And of course, you could look right at these pictures that they show you, and they show you what looks like a rock, and you can actually see a rodent, which is an Arctic lemming, also native to Devon Island. And you might say, what in the world is Devon Island? Well, Devon Island is Mars. And NASA is continuing to release what they're calling Mars rover footage of what it looks like on Mars, while people aren't processing the thought of how are they getting there? Are humans getting on Mars? They're talking about colonizing Mars. They're talking about going back to the moon, but they never go back. Well, that's because these are all deceptions, and it shouldn't surprise anyone that the word NASA means in Hebrew to deceive, or the fact that NASA's logo actually even features the serpent's tongue. So Devon Island is where all of this footage that you're seeing is coming from. In fact, they've even admitted to this in the past. Getting to Devon Island in Canada's far north was so hard it felt like traveling to the moon. When NASA asked me to test out their new spacesuit, I had to travel to one of the harshest places on Earth. Even an article from 2015, Mars on Earth. Canadian Arctic serves as Red Planet training ground. They're using footage from the largest uninhabited island on Earth, known as Devon Island. And you might say, well, it's an island. What are they going to do, fake putting a lot of human beings living on this island? Well, Devon Island is a very large island. This is not like a little Hawaiian island. Devon Island is actually larger than New England. It is 21,331 square miles, and it's larger than New England, which makes up 6 states here in the United States of America: Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, with an estimated 14 million people. So when they're talking about colonizing Mars and occupying Mars, they're talking about deceiving people into thinking that the human race can obviously live on Devon Island, not literally Mars, where Devon Island looks like, of course, what we've been told Mars looks like. Red rocks, for miles and miles and miles on end. And we're going to see a deception where they're going to show us one of these SpaceX rockets landing on Devon Island, telling us that this is Mars, which I believe is part of the reason that recently they started showing us SpaceX catching the Starship rocket booster. You've seen this footage now all of a sudden after all these years where we've seen these NASA shuttles fly into space, never come back, head out to the Bermuda Triangle to crash. Well, now all of a sudden, the last couple of months, we suddenly see these rockets from SpaceX that go up. They never tell us where they go, what happens to them. Now they're coming back down and they're landing, and they keep showing us this over and over and over again because they're preparing to deceive people into thinking that we can land on Mars and that human beings can then travel to Mars. And do you think it will be that hard to deceive people when they go into one of these so-called rockets where they won't have windows, where they'll go up and then they'll suddenly land on Mars, which will really be Devon Island? These people will think that they're 130 million miles away, or whatever the fictitious number is that they make up between the distance between here and Mars. All I have to do is send the rocket up into the air wherever it exits from, California or Florida, keep it up there for a while, obviously send it up north of Canada and land it there, and then tell people that they're actually on Mars. And this experiment that they're doing with Elon Musk, this Occupy Mars, reminds me a lot of the Jonestown experiment, for the reason being of the massive amounts of mind control being done. For those of you that don't know, Jim Jones is the cult leader who was really a CIA agent who they did an experiment with to see how many people he'd be able to lure to leave America and go live in Guyana. It was called the People's Temple Agricultural Project. And that story ended with everybody supposedly drinking the Kool-Aid. But of course, that's not what really occurred. They were inoculated. They were put down because the experiment had run its course. They saw how many people went there. They saw how many people were going along with the project and weren't. And when it was time to detonate the actual experiment, because some politicians in America who weren't as corrupt as the ones today were actually investigating what was going on, because so many families were reporting that their family members just up and left in the night, and they wanted to find out where they were because nobody was able to communicate with them on this island at the People's Temple Project, so to speak, in Guyana. And the government started investigating where some of them went. And of course, the CIA had to cut off the experiment because they didn't want any government officials who weren't in the know to figure out what was happening. And anyone, of course, who did question what was happening were also killed during this experiment. Leo Joseph Ryan, who went down there, he represented California's 11th district, and he was getting too close to this CIA operation, and he was killed. And that's what the government does. They ran this experiment. And it reminds me a lot of Jonestown, because we're starting to see this Mars cult that Elon Musk is starting to create with the Neuralink, with people who are on board with this advancement in technology. And of course, this all goes back to Project Mars, and it goes back to what is called the technocracy movement. And Project Mars, for anyone out there that doesn't know, is a fictional tale written by Dr. Wernher von Braun. Dr. Wernher von Braun, of course, is the creator of NASA, who wrote this fictional book, where the plot of the book, he writes about a futuristic people, aka transhumanists, who will have Elon Musk technology embedded in them, who would colonize Mars. And even in his fictitious book, the leader of the colony went by the name Elon. The Martian government was directed by 10 men, the leader of whom was elected by universal suffrage for 5 years and entitled Elon. And in this tale, this Project Mars, a technical tale, the fictional story revolves around a global, united Earth government. After a devastating war launches a major mission to Mars based on the discovery of Martian canals by a powerful space telescope. Keep that in mind. The tweet from Elon Musk about a new world, that Mars will be a new world. Project Mars, the character's name is Elon. And the plot, of course, is a global united Earth government. Now, it's also important to note that with this entire fictitious experiment that they're going to do with Mars, to look at that technocracy movement. In science, we trust, okay? the group called Technocracy Incorporated wanted to reorganize society by putting scientists in charge. And there would be no politicians, business people, money or income inequality. Those were all features of what technocracy called the price system. But keep this in mind. There would be no countries called Canada or the United States either. Just one giant continental landmass called the Technate, a techno-utopia run by engineers and other experts in their fields. Now, why is that important? Because we're talking about what was once called the North American Union experiment, the merging of Mexico, the US, and Canada. And in technocracy, that movement's plan was to abolish countries like Canada and the United States and merge it into this giant technocrat utopia. Does that sound like a lot of the things that we're hearing in the news today? How all of a sudden Donald Trump and Canadians are talking about taking over Canada, where Canadians are saying, Trump, take my country, please. Where Donald Trump is talking about Trudeau being such a incompetent, horrible leader, which of course was all done by design, the role that he's been playing, just like Biden, that America should just swallow up Canada whole and merge it together. That's interesting because in technocracy, there would be no countries called Canada or the United States. And of course, who was the leader of Technocracy Incorporated? Joshua Haldeman. And who is Joshua Haldeman? Well, that's Elon Musk's grandfather who created the technocracy movement. And if you don't think Elon Musk is planning this, well, he even tweeted out a while ago, accelerating Starship development to build the Martian technocracy. What are some other things that we've heard Elon Musk talk about? Because we're talking about a different human race, a futuristic people. That's what the novel is based on. When you hear futuristic people, what do you think of? Are you thinking of somebody who's just wearing futuristic clothing like in the Jetsons? Futuristic people. Think about what we're seeing now with technology, the merging of man and machine. And think of the things that Elon Musk has been talking about. Creating a neural lace is the thing that really matters for humanity to achieve symbiosis with machines. Other tweets, if successful, X will evolve to be the collective consciousness of humanity, or more accurately, the human machine collective. X as humanity's collective consciousness. We're talking about the potential of a new race of humans being started here over at Mars or on Devon Island, where we start seeing the actual breeding of man and machine. Because once man and machine achieve what he calls symbiosis, you're talking about man and machine forming a collective consciousness with one thought, a hive mind. And you might remember in The Economist, when I covered that a few months ago, the cover of The Economist, The World Ahead in 2025, which all came underneath Saturn, of course, there was a photo right on there of Mars. And now that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are being put into power, where we've even seen the shift of Donald Trump taking a back seat to Elon Musk, keep in mind things like United States Space Force and these other things that they've been talking about, like Mars Quest, President Trump and Elon Musk's grand vision to conquer Mars. Elon Musk's Mars dream could get boost from Trump victory. So I fully believe that there is going to be a massive deception where they're going to convince people that they've actually got to Mars, kind of like they did with the moon landing. They'll convince people, they'll convince conservatives that they've gotten to Mars. They'll show them a lot of this CGI footage, in addition, of course, to footage from Devon Island, which people won't really be able to break down because it's an actual real place that looks like what? Well, everything we've been told Mars looks like. We've all been shown images and been told of what Mars looks like. We've been told it's red, right? We've been told that it looks just like what these pictures that they're now showing us of Mars look like. And they didn't conveniently start showing us how SpaceX rockets can now land without, exploding or anything else. Like I said, the NASA shuttles go up into quote unquote space and never return. Now we're seeing SpaceX launch these things. They never show you where they go or what it's actually doing up there other than heating the atmosphere, the ionosphere. Then they come back down and suddenly land. And when it comes to a place like Devon Island, the majority of civilians don't have the slightest clue it even exists because they've never been told about it, because the government has kept it secret for a long time. They've kept it secret because it's such a large island that they've deliberately kept uninhabited, because they have a plan to bring a large portion of people, maybe the size of New England, which would, again, contain the states Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, which is it's a large area that could fit on this island. 14 million potential people could fit on Devon Island. And I think the comparisons to Jim Jones are spot on. I really do, because I've studied Jim Jones over the years. My videos breaking down Jonestown are on the website if anyone out there wants to see. And for the young people out there who are like, I've never heard of Jonestown, it's a story everyone should know about. The whole expression drinking the Kool-Aid comes from that experiment. It was not something that organically happened. Some minister didn't just trick his flock into going down to Guyana and then get them to drink poison and kill themselves. It was a government experiment, a CIA mind control experiment, using MK Ultra, using things like LSD that we all know about from the 60s and 70s that the CIA ran. And they used Jim Jones, who was a government agent, to be the face of this entire experiment, so that when they decided to implode the experiment, it would just look like some crazy Christian religious cult. But the reality is that Jim Jones's comparisons to Elon Musk are very, very similar, because there's a cult following that Elon Musk almost has now. And it's all based on technology. It's all based on people who are now conservative, who follow Elon Musk, who love the things like the Neuralink, who love the advancements in technology, who believe that we could actually go land on a planet somewhere called Mars, who don't understand the spiritual aspects of astrology and the gods that these Satanists actually worship. And you could literally look at Project Mars, and then that really should be a wake-up call, right? A fictional book called Project Mars by Dr. Wernher von Braun, who is the creator of NASA. Look it up. Wernher von Braun created NASA and wrote this fictional book about a futuristic people who would colonize Mars, led by a guy named Elon. And the plot of the book talks about a global united Earth movement who are creating this utopian society on Mars. Then the connection, of course, between Elon Musk and his grandfather, who started Technocracy Incorporated. Technocracy Incorporated, which the basis of this is that science rules. And it's no coincidence that part of the story with technocracy is that Canada and the United States would no longer be Canada and the United States. Well, they're talking about Canada merging with the United States, which would sound to me a lot like the first step in this process, would it not? And again, Elon Musk talking about Martian technocracy, talking about achieving symbiosis with machines, evolving the collective consciousness, and then constantly telling us that we will get to Mars in our lifetime, and it'll be called the New World. The deception is thick, but with information overload, it's very difficult for people to process everything that's happening, because there's so much news, there's so many stories, there's so many emotions getting pulled out of people from so many sides, right? They're normalizing insanity, so it drives people crazy. So they're siding people with same people with people like Musk and Trump. And then while Musk is talking about less government and how we need to stop these lunatics, everyone's like, yeah, he's totally right. I totally relate to him. He's mixing all this transhumanist stuff in. Every tweet he makes, it's about something that most normal people would agree with, and then throwing in Neuralink, throwing in a new world on Mars. I guarantee you, 100 out of 100 people don't have the slightest clue what he's talking about with Mars. They actually think, oh, okay, I mean, maybe we'll get to Mars. He's a genius, right? We're told he's a genius. I don't know. They show these rockets taking off. They don't show us anything else, but now they're showing us these things landing. Well, because subliminally they're conditioning you now into thinking that, wow, they could land rockets. Well, maybe it looks like a plane landing. Maybe you could travel with a rocket to a place like, I don't know, Mars, and you could colonize on Mars. Maybe they're going to make things so difficult here on Earth, on the surface, where they literally make it uninhabitable, by chemtrailing us to death by making it almost impossible to get actual sunlight to grow food, that people won't have a choice than to colonize or go to Mars, where they could fit probably 15 million people, all at the same time that the alt-right media has begun pushing the narrative as well to their audience that they know don't understand what this is. So they now need to implant these talking points like Alex Jones is doing, telling everyone the plan to colonize Mars is critical to the survival of humanity and consciousness. And none of these people have the slightest clue what they're even talking about. Not just going to Mars and what they're really telling you. They're talking about the survival of humanity and consciousness. And people are just like, what? Consciousness? Yeah, the collective consciousness. What do you think the Neuralink is going to create when it's embedded in people? A collective consciousness. Because guess what? When they talk about you giving your thoughts to machines and being able to tell a computer through telepathy to print something or do something or whatever you want to tell it to do, it's going to be sending the same information back. And that's how they create a collective consciousness. So pay attention to this narrative with Mars as we go forward and the new world ahead. It is all a deception. And the deception really is going to get thick in 2025. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.